Phil, take it away. Oh,
Good
yeah.
afternoon, everyone. It's a real honor to be here again as host of the Legacy of Steven Larsen Zoom series. And it's great to see everybody out there. And those of you who are out in the audience are muted right now, but then you will be unmuted when it comes time for you to ask your own questions. So let's go on here. Steve, the last time we talked about the musicians. So let's focus on the concerts themselves this time. Over the past 30 years, you have obviously conducted many concerts with the RSO. So I'm going to put you on the spot here a bit. What is your all-time favorite concert and why?
I don't think I can say one concert in particular. It's in recent memory, but our last night of the Proms concert might come in, even in another 30 years, might come in right at the top because it was just so much fun for everybody. You could tell at the end of a concert when the audience is just, they love it so much and they're totally surprised that they love it so much. You could just hear it in the tone of their roar. And that was just really fun. Going back though and looking at others, I've loved each one of the operas we've done. Madame Butterfly, Barbara of Seville, Tosca, La Boheme, Lucia di Lammermoor. They've been just, I wish we could have done more. It just, unfortunately, we are not equipped, very well equipped as a symphony orchestra to do operas. Besides that, I think maybe my all-time favorite concert might be that Mozart anniversary concert we did in 2006, where it was pieces by Mozart and pieces that were written in tribute to Mozart, inspired by Mozart, with soloists, with singers, and it was just, that was just really a high point, I think, the pieces we were able to do on that program.
Well, now you mentioned the Palms, and I was part of the Pop series, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, it was.
Is there another Pop series concert that you could put up there as one of your favorites?
My favorite Pops concert was still probably the first one we did in the Coronado. It was September 18th, 2001, which of course is 7 days after 9/11, and it was Doc Severinsen. And Doc Severinsen has always been a hero of mine. I grew up watching him on Johnny Carson, and besides the fact he's very entertaining and a great showman, he's just a great trumpet player. And being able to share the stage with him and actually be able to play Bugler's Holiday with him, to play third trumpet that night, Mark Bolden playing second, and the loudest, fastest Bugler's Holiday, I'm sure, in history. It was a lot of fun.
Well, it sounds like a challenge too.
Bugler's Holiday is not as hard as it sounds, actually. It's a, the double tonguing sounds difficult, but pretty much anybody beyond intermediate stage and trumpet playing can do it.
But now I believe that if I'm correct in that when you first started with RSO 30 years ago, there really wasn't a Pop series at that time.
No.
When did the series begin, and what was the motivation behind starting it?
The motivation was, I thought, pretty obvious. People like Pop's concerts. They sell well, they're fun, and for me it massages part of my my unfulfilled instincts that I wish I could be a jazz pianist. I wish I could be that kind of an entertainer, and being able to do Pop's programs fulfills that. And some of that music is just really hard. It's very challenging for the orchestra, and And you get to work with some very unusual people along the way. The first Pops concert was 1993. I knew right at the very beginning when I started with the orchestra in 1991, I wanted to do Pops. So 1993 was our first holiday Pops concert. In 1995, we added a spring and fall Pops. And we've been going ever since. And I love the Pops concerts. I look forward to them every time. And some of them are more fulfilling than others, shall we say. But they're always fun to prepare. And you never quite know what you're going to get when you've got that one rehearsal with the guest artist or the guest artists. And you got to put the program together in 2.5 hours and get it on the stage that evening.
Wow. Well, let's get into what goes on prior to a concert. Do you have any kind of pre-concert rituals, superstitions, anything like that going on prior to a concert?
The only thing I do with religious faithfulness is before every concert, before I go out on the stage, at the sign of the cross, I say a prayer of thanks for the privilege of the joy of being able to lead this orchestra, and I ask for strength and for insight and for mental acuity and charisma to be able to do the concert to my best ability.
You have a muse?
Well, I could say Euterpe, who's the muse of music, and get off there. No, I would probably have to say my muse is Marty, my wife. She's the person I bounce ideas off of. We talk about things. I love to say that I'm a profoundly uncreative person, but give me an idea, or just get me started on something and I can go somewhere. And that's what Marty's for. We talk about things and she suggests things and she says, it's a bad idea or a good idea. And we go with it from there. So I don't think I could do this without her.
So, well, we've talked about pre-concert activities, which you do, and a muse. Can you tell us what the emotional process is on concert night?
Marty likes to say that as the concert approaches, I check out. I become sort of non-communicative, and I'm thinking about what's going to happen. I don't necessarily run through music in my head, but I sort of see or try to imagine the entire process of how the concert's going to go, what it's going to feel like, and sometimes I'll flip through the music, look at a couple of places, but most of the time I just sort of try to get myself in my head in the right place. And I don't get nervous before I conduct. I have no nerves as far as that goes. Playing an instrument in front of somebody is another thing. I get nervous if I have to look at them. I think it's the question of having to look at people, face them. But I never, I don't get nerves. I don't get dry mouth, none of that stuff.
You're very fortunate.
Yeah.
I'm sure that what you're saying to me sounds very similar, I'm sure, to an actor just before they're getting ready to go out on the Broadway stage. I would imagine that they're probably off in their own world as well at that time.
Well, I think it's, everybody does it differently. I mean, I've, sat backstage or stood backstage with guest artists who already go on, who are kind of jiggling and they're nervous and they're breathing hard and they're you can tell that they're really their pulse is up and this is a lot of adrenaline pumping for them. There are other people who just kind of they walk onto the stage and it's no big deal. I'm going to go out and play the Tchaikovsky concerto. So what? And it's everybody's a little bit different that way.
Well, speaking of guest artists, thinking back over the 30 years, and you've obviously worked with many guest artists. Who's your favorite
That's hard to say. I have different favorites for different reasons, but I think probably the best answer would be Rachel Barton Pine. I go back with Rachel. I judged. I was one of the judges for the Illinois Bell Telephone Young Artist Contest with the Chicago Symphony when Rachel would get up there at age 8 and win the competition and win the competition next year at age 9 and next year at age 10. She was just quite something even back then. I conducted her, I think the first time when she was 13 with the community orchestra. I was leading in Chicago. She might even been younger than that. The year I started at the Rockford Symphony, I conducted her at a concert in Wheaton that summer, doing the Barber Concerto. Since then, well, I wrote it down because I couldn't remember, but we did the Beethoven Concerto in 2001, the Waxman Carmen Fantasy in 2001, Vivaldi Autumn also, Saint-Saëns Introduction and Rondo Capriccioso, the Sibelius Concerto in 2005, the Glatzenov Concerto in 2009, Paganini No. 2 in 2012, and a concert, I'm sure some of the people remember when she played the Baroque violin, the viola d'amore, the modern violin, or the violin she plays now, and the electric violin, all in one program. She's an amazing personality. And one other reason I think that I feel such a strong connection to her, besides the fact we go back a long way, is that when I was in the hospital 2 years ago, I looked at her for strength. I kept saying, if she can get run over by a train and do what she's doing today, after losing a leg and part of another leg and all the surgery she's been through, I only got run over by a car. You know, I can get out of here and I can get back to normal. So she was, yeah, I kept thinking about her. She was my sort of an inspiration during that time. There are a few other people that I really need to bring up. One of my all-time favorites was David Syme. David's appeared with us 3 or 4 times, and I worked with him in other orchestras too. David, if you remember David is just, he's something else. He's huge. He's 6'3" and weighs somewhere way north of 300 pounds. He looks like he's ready to topple over. He has the sense of humor that only the son of an Orthodox rabbi can have. He's very neurotic, very fun, very intense, and with an incredible sense of humor. One of the things I remember he was doing to me one year was, you know, that the expression that everybody always uses, go ahead, when you, just a matter of courtesy, you see somebody in heavy, go ahead. I would say that to him, go ahead. And he said, why are you calling me a goat head? Yeah. And no, I'm not calling you, I said, go ahead. No, you called me a goat head. Why'd you call me that? And, you know, if you know David, he kind of hulks. He's just these enormous things. He's looking down at you with these piercing eyes. And you called me a goat head again. You don't know whether to turn around and run or how serious he is. You know, there's looking at the list here. Oh, another great experience was Andre Watts. Only worked with him once, but I remember that we did, it was the Brahms first piano concerto in 2003. And we were talking before before the rehearsals, and he said, you know, this is the piece I played just before I had a stroke. And it was 10 years ago, and I haven't played it since. And I'm really feeling kind of emotional about this concert because, you know, I associate the Brahms first with what happened. So you know, we had that going between us during the concert. He was kind of teary afterwards. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Jeffrey Beagle, he's played with us a lot. Just a wonderful personality, incredible mind, incredible inquisitive pianist, and a great pianist at that. Hector Oliveira. This wasn't that long ago, but when he played, he brought that enormous organ, Allen organ, onto all those speakers in the back of the stage of the Coronado to play the Johann Sinfonia Concertante. Man, that was a great experience. And of course, the Saint-Saëns organ concerto. The sound, just I'll never forget that.
Anybody on the, well, I guess I should ask, well, I guess you've already answered this question in a way. Whose performance have you enjoyed the most? But what about on the pop side? Is there anybody in particular that stands out?
Well, look at my list here, don't forget anything here. One of my favorite Pops concerts was something we got to do twice, and that was the Cirque de la Symphonie, with the acrobats, the circus musicians. Yeah, they were just incredible. And no, I don't know how they did the trick when they with the jacket, when they took my jacket off me. People say, "Oh, you were sworn to secrecy." I said, "No, I have no idea what they did. Don't have any idea." Todd Rundgren was a big favorite. He was not officially a Pops concert, but being able to work with a rock legend like that, do 2 concerts. Maren Maisie, the late and great Maren Maisie. I've worked with a lot of singers, but and some of them you know you're in the presence of greatness, but you really felt that on the stage with Maren. She was just a consummate professional. What a voice and actor, and just such a shame she's gone. My cat is back.
I noticed that. Maybe we should ask your cat a question.
Well, my joke is, I ask her, "When do you want to eat?" She goes, "Meow, meow."
Well, she knows. Well, I've done enough here. It's time for all of you out there to ask your questions. So the floor is open. Who has a question?
Don't fall in the hole if the floor is open.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Be sure to unmute yourself before you ask, or you can type it in the comments in the chat and we'll see it and we can ask it for you.
Someone must have a question.
Yeah. Here's one. One of the concerts I remember as a favorite was where Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition was performed.
Yeah.
And with the pictures, I wondered if you have any stories on how that came together.
Yeah, that with the Rockford Pictures, are sort of our own Rockford edition of the Pictures at an Exhibition. My idea with that was to get Rockford photographers to contribute photos of the town that they wanted to have featured, and we would put them. We would decide where they would go in each one of the movements of pictures, and a number of them did, but there were some holes in terms of movements that didn't have the mood quite expressed the right way. So I had to go out and take a bunch of pictures. I remember going to a couple of different cemeteries and taking some artsy gravestone pictures, and the picture looking down the railroad track, that was mine, an old abandoned boxcar, stuff like that. But Kurt Johnson put that whole thing together, did all the fades and everything, and I had to give him a recording to base the timing on. So when we actually did the performance, I had to basically follow the pictures and remember how the timing matched up. And sometimes it went better than others. I think it went pretty well in the performance that we actually nailed the final chord of the piece at the end of the Great Gate of Kiev is timed to coincide with a fireworks burst. And it's very, very difficult to figure out exactly where that is, but we completely nailed it the night of the performance. It was great.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I've always been curious about the guest performers when they come in. perhaps the day before, and what they do when they're not rehearsing and playing. Are they, um, with somebody from the orchestra or?
It kind of depends on what they do. If you're a pianist, chances are you're spending almost your entire day practicing. Pianists play more than anybody else. They go to the Coronado and they just sit and they play and they play and they play and they play. Violinists also play a lot, but they can do that in their hotel rooms, or cellists. Generally speaking, we try to leave them alone unless it seems like they really want to do something. And I've taken people, showed them around Rockford, taken them out for lunch and things like that. They usually would come in on Thursday before the concert and have the Thursday night rehearsal. Friday afternoon, they would go to Sound Bites, and I usually try to take them out for lunch after that. But usually there's just a lot of practice time involved in there, and we don't get a chance to see them very, very much.
Okay, thank you.
Who else?
Keep the tails. Oh,
Steve,
my.
you had a fun story about, what I thought was a really cool story about Jodie Benson when she came.
Yeah, Jodie Benson, who was, of course, she's from Rockford, and she was the voice of the Little Mermaid. She was featured at a Pops concert, she and her husband. One of the pieces we were doing was the song, part of my, what's the name of the song?
Under the Sea?
Out
Out of This World?
Out of This World? Yeah, okay.
Part of this world.
And it was the Disney arrangement, which at that time it was hard to get the Disney. Well, but it was pretty much impossible, except she had pull. In subsequent years, we've been able to get the actual Disney arrangements for things. They're making money off of that. What a surprise! But when she started to sing, and we were playing in the rehearsal, I got goosebumps all over, because it was like all of a sudden being in the middle of the movie. The animated film. It was the Little Mermaid was standing next to me singing. It was kind of uncanny. I've stood next to Itzhak Perlman and that people like that, but it was not quite the same kind of uncanny experience as finding yourself in sound immersed in the middle of a classic movie at that point. Another classic movie, I think I might have talked about this at another session, but the Wizard of Oz was so much fun to do, and so difficult to put together, to try to match up the timing with the songs and everything. And I forgive me if I've said this before, but I was despondent afterwards because how lousy I thought I did. And the guy the producer who came with the show said, you did great. I said, no, it was awful. He said, no, this is the most difficult movie that there is to a company that's out there. You did a great job. So I feel a little better after that.
We do have a question here. Do you have any stories about Itzhak Perlman?
Well, the first was probably the best one is, I'm sure he's done this to many, 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 many conductors. He's coming to this little town, Rockford, and we're at the Midway Theater then. So he's walking across the parking lot after having been dropped off. He's of course wearing on his crutches, approaching the stage door, and he said, "Maestro Larsen, I'm very much looking forward to doing the Sibelius with you today." Except we were doing the Brahms Concerto, and I'm sure he's done that 100 times. And just for a second, I bought it. He was very nice. He's a very nice man, very, very gracious. And at the reception afterwards, he was mobbed by people. And at some point, I just decided to slip out and go home. And I got a phone call from somebody the next morning who said, Perlman wanted me to call you and to tell you, especially say that he was sorry he didn't see you at the end. He wanted to say thank you. you know, he didn't have to do that.
Great. Other questions? I believe there's a question up there. You have to unmute yourself, please.
Hey, Tom, this is Chris Kvark. Knowing that you travel and you've been on some different trips that were centered around traveling, if you had to make one more trip or suggest one trip that was focused around music, where would that be?
Oh, one trip, just one trip. You're killing me. Well, one of the great experiences of my life was the one summer I got to see the Bayreuth Festival. And all Wagner, of course, in the theater that Wagner built, especially for his operas, and to see them, to hear them in that space was like just, it's just unbelievable. The pit, if you don't know about the Festspielhaus at Bayreuth, it's built with a very unusual opera pit that extends downward in tiers under the stage. It's quite large and goes quite deep. And the musicians and the conductor are not visible from the audience. And the brass are in the final tier, way down in the basement. And I'm told that they are doubled, at least for the big moments. And the sound of those probably close to 100 musicians playing, coming up from underneath the stage is just, it's impossible to duplicate. You have to be there in those circumstances to have that kind of a sound. The first time the orchestra really opened up, I believe it was in Tannhäuser, the first opera we saw that. I just started to cry. I'd never heard anything like that. It was just unbelievable. And the staging and the singing and everything, it's quite wonderful too. I'm really hoping that we can get this trip to Italy going this year, because we're one of the features of the Italy trip is the arena at Verona, where we are going to see Aida conducted by Riccardo Muti in that outdoor amphitheater built by the Romans. And that's going to be, an experience of a lifetime.
Thanks,
We
Steve.
know that you love music. What other kinds of art do you find fascinating or entertaining or enjoying?
I love visual art. I don't get quite enough of it. It's always a highlight to go to something, a place like the Art Museum in Chicago, or to any of the great art museums in the world that I've been to. Being able to see those pictures live, up close, walk around them, stare at them, read a little something about them. That's when we went to Tanglewood a couple of years ago, we went to the Clark Gallery up in northern Massachusetts there, and seeing a lot of the Impressionists, the American Impressionists there, is just a fantastic experience. I wish I knew more about ballet. I've conducted the Nutcracker and a few others, but I can't say that I really feel close to the art. Theater, well, when I can get it, it's a great thing. But opera is probably the number one thing that I really miss. I miss conducting opera. I miss, frankly, seeing opera. Of course, you can see it in film, you can see it in YouTube and other things like that, but it's not quite the same.
Maybe one final.
What are you going to do next? Can you hear me now?
What? Yes.
I wonder what you're going to do next, Steve.
Well, what am I going to do next? Well, I've already started my new career. I'm a wine consultant at the New Binnies in Rockford. And I'm doing some serious wine studying now, taking courses and reading books and everything. But I've always loved wine, and thought I knew something about wine. And found out that there's really a lot more I need to know, but it's a fascinating thing. I'm working with some really brilliant people who really know their stuff. And yeah, stocking the shelves with cases of wine is not very much fun, but you get to look at the bottles and to talk about them and to talk about the bottles with customers that come in. I don't know how long it's going to last, but right now it's keeping me off the streets and it's fun. And I get an employee discount.
One final question, anyone? Well, thank you. As you know, I just want to remind folks that the RSO is in the midst of the Larsen Legacy Campaign, which is a $500,000 fundraising effort named in honor of Steve and his final season here at the RSO. The funds from this campaign will help RSO weather the COVID-19 storm, so to speak, and provide a solid foundation for the RSO's next music director. And if you would like to contribute, visit the RSO's website at rockfordsymphony.com. And if you've already contributed, thank you very much.
Yes.
And thank you everyone for those great questions and for being with us today for the third installment of the Legacy of Steven Larsen Zoom series. And we invite you to join us for the fourth and final installment on Zoom on Friday, January 22nd at noon, when we will be focusing on the future. So be with us. We will see you then, and stay safe and healthy. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Take care.